We're going to go ahead and get started. It's right at 7:30, so we're going to respect everyone's time. Thank you for everyone who was on time and ready. I think this is going to be a really good discussion. And I'm just going to start with, for anyone who's new and doesn't know who Staples and Tiffany and what we do, I'm just going to tell you a little about us. Staples and Tints is made up of myself and my husband, Dakota, who's also on the panel. And our goal is to increase diversity in the outdoors community I'm sorry. Everyone could mute their phones so that we don't get the feedback. That would be appreciated. Okay, so at Staples and Tints, our goal is to help increase diversity in the outdoor community by providing positive images of Black and Brown people outdoors, to kind of challenge the stereotype that people of color do not dwell in outdoor spaces. We actually thrive in these spaces. As part of the gathering, which was our inaugural camp out, we were supposed to do this discussion, camping and overlanding while Black, but unfortunately we didn't have the time. So we wanted to still make sure that we bring attention to this subject and have the discussion tonight. So thank everyone, welcome everyone who's attended. And I'm going to start off, we're going to go down the panel and we're all going to introduce ourselves. And I'll start. Again, my name is Sonia Staples. Half of the Staples and Tints couple. I think in terms of who we are, I'm probably the planner of us. I make sure we eat most of the time at the gathering. I didn't do the best job, but started camping just 5 or 6 years ago. My best friend, Teresa, she actually influenced me to camp, and I introduced it to Dakota. First camping trip was pretty rocky, but after we got through it, it was an amazing time. I didn't grow up camping. I didn't grow up off-roading. I didn't grow up overlanding. All of these things are very new to me. But Teresa inspired me to get outside and camp, and then just through all of the benefits that it provided to my relationship with Dakota, we kept doing it, and it's hence became our passion. So right now, my full-time job is to manage Staples and Tints and create programming for everyone like this. And now we're just going to go down, starting with Ron and then Teresa and Dakota. And if you guys could just tell where you're from, where you currently live, what inspired you to get into camping or overlanding, and then just give a brief recap of your journey.
Oh, all right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ron Frazier. I'm one of the founders of Camp Yoshi. I think I saw my brother Rashad hopped in. I think he's on the line as well. But Camp Yoshi is myself, Rashad, and Shakita. Our mission is really simple. We get Black folks outside, take Black folks on camping trips. We focus on remote backcountry camping trips. So our goal is to give folks confidence and to show folks they can go further, go farther, and go as hard as they want to go as far as the outdoor spaces go. We definitely focus on overlanding as far as getting in and out of the spaces, but we also will do hiking adventures, rafting adventures, whatever. We don't really get so much focus on what the activity is or what the tribe is as far as the outdoors go. We're really trying to build confidence for Black folks in these spaces. My background is I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina originally. I grew up in the outdoors, but it wasn't, I think, what people think of as far as sort of camping and hiking. We just played in the woods, I mean, I feel like, our childhood was basically running around the woods. We lived near a lake, so we called ourselves lake boys. We were on the lake a lot. We grew up in the water. I think I had a life jacket and swim trunks on for pretty much most of the days in the summer. And that's just sort of what we did. We didn't think of it as hiking or climbing or, kayaking. We were just boys running around the woods from the South. So that's my sort of background as far as the outdoors go. We started playing in the outdoors more often and going on more adventures, I guess, camping adventures as a way to stay connected as a family. My brother and I My brother was in New York. I was in DC and Charlotte. We were having children of our own, and we just wanted to have a way to sort of stay connected and find ways to get out there and be more present with our children as we were growing. So that's how we sort of got into more ambitious, I guess, or more adventurous camping, if you will. And as far as overlanding goes, funny enough, what made the overlanding thing click for me was boats. I grew up, seeing boats and sort of knowing how boats work and maintaining boats from fishing and whatnot. And when I saw that they were basically taking sort of like a boating approach to camping, as far as equipping it out for conditions, maintenance, things like that, I thought, oh, okay, I get it now. And it was a no-brainer for me because it felt safer. I feel like you can go as far as you want. You can leave when you want to leave, and you can take as much comfort as you want because you're in a vehicle, right? So that was my sort of aha moment for overlanding specifically. I'm excited to be here tonight.
Thanks, Ron. For those who just joined, we're just going through the panel, introducing ourselves. I did put up one poll question just so we can get a feel for the audience and understand what you guys' experience is. So as Teresa and Dakota continue, if you guys could answer the poll question.
Hi, good evening. I'm Teresa Burge. I'm Sonia's best friend. I started camping 10 years ago. I was actually found out I was pregnant with my son, and my mother-in-law brought a camper RV like the next week. And then we started camping in the RV, and my son's father, my ex-husband, and I started tent camping. I think my first time tent camping when I was 6 months pregnant, and I camped until my 9th month pregnant in the winter, and it was great. So I started doing a lot of family camping when my son was younger. And then kind of the opposite of Sonia and Dakota, I actually started camping by myself to get away from my boyfriend at the time, or spouse at the time. So it was a way for me to get away and to regroup, ground myself. And from that, I have camped solo camping, camp with my son. I camp in groups. I go to trail rides and camp. I like being outside. Sonia and I grew up running track. And if anyone has ever run track or gone to a track meet, you're out there from morning to evening to sometimes night. And I think one thing that really, sparked, my camping spirit is because I get the best sleep outside. And so it's really me being outside, just like I was when I was younger, sleeping outside, regrouping. It's just a way for me to relax. And over the years, I've evolved. I've started kayaking, hiking, biking, doing other things when I camp. And my son does it. It's a family affair. Both sides of my family camp. We kind of have a Coreens camping. My grandmom's name is Coreen, so we have a group. We go to trail rides together and we camp together, and our kids will come with us. So camping is just my escape. I was driving home from work in that full moon. I was like, I should go camping this weekend, but I can't because I have responsibilities and, but on the perfect day or perfect weekend, I would be camping. So it's kind of my escape. On Instagram, I'm Glamp Queen. One of the things, I have an obsession with camp gear, and I have another obsession with shopping and sales. So I kind of like looking at sales. I could buy something every day if I had the pocketbook for it, but I've kind of had to, be an adult. But I love camping. I love planning, and that's my story. Thank you.
Tree Tribes! What's up, everybody? I hope that you all have your wine, got you something to drink on. Hope that you came to the party ready to learn, be excited. I think you all know the origin story. It was a dark and stormy night, and I was hating being outdoors. And but in an attempt to give a last-ditch effort at saving our marriage, we took the advice of our counselor, and wow, it worked out. So we've been camping for about 6 years. I'm sure you guys have heard the story enough by now. As far as overlanding is concerned, we I would say we sort of stumbled into it. You know, overlanding is vehicle-based travel or vehicle-dependent travel, and it also has this really another part to it that oftentimes goes a little unnoticed in America is in the aspect of overlanding is this part of cultural immersion. And so you want to be culturally involving yourself in cultures that are different than your own. So that's the other part, which normally lands you into world travel. So as we have been evolving from, weekend campers, we are now delving into the concept of what does it mean to be a world traveler, as well as a world citizen. So we're hoping that as we continue to evolve, that we continue to become better overlanders. But certainly in traveling across the country, we have learned more than we ever thought we could about what it means to be vehicle-based or vehicle-dependent as we travel.
Sonia, you're on mute.
Thank y'all. I said, Nakota, can you also share a little bit about your experience growing up with the outdoors, like your connection with the outdoors? And
Yeah, definitely. I grew up in rural Virginia, outside or an hour south of Roanoke, Virginia, and an hour north of Greensboro, a little town called Horse Pasture. Another of the bigger town was Martinsville, which most people know from the Speedway. But I grew up a country boy, and essentially being that we were a little bit isolated where we were, I was able to be a free range kid, and as long as I did my chores, I could go and play outdoors. And oftentimes that entailed, if I wanted to go play basketball with the suburban kids, if you will, I would get on my bike and bring my basketball and drive across the mountains, through the forest, over the creek, the song, just to get to hang out with my friends for a little while. And that just overall left me being very comfortable being in the woods all times of day, following creek beds, tracking animals, all of that kind of stuff. I did as a kid, and just, I was just very comfortable being in the woods. It was a place of refuge. And at the time it was just fun. You could always explore, find abandoned houses, and I don't know, just play in the forest. So I grew up and I separated from that. Oftentimes, as we become adults, we are taught that the city life is everybody make sure the on. So as we become older, oftentimes we're told that the city is where it's at and the country isn't. And so I fell into that whole thing and didn't want to, or wanted to do all of what I thought was city living. And I'm sure we were accomplished in that regard. But the further I got away from my roots, the more disconnected I felt in the whole thing of succeeding and whatever that definition that America put on us, and being a corporate success became what I thought happiness was, until I realized that it wasn't. Does that help you, babe?
thank you. I appreciate that. And now we're going to go ahead and jump into like the meat of the conversation. You guys feel free to utilize the chat if you have any follow-up questions for anyone, or just want to make a comment. We want this to be really engaging as possible. So I'm going to put up the next poll question, and it's concerning fear outdoors. We want to know if any of you have fear and anxiety about your personal safety because of your race when you are outdoors exploring. And now if we can hear from our panelists, have you ever felt uncomfortable while you've been traveling due to your race, and what did you do to how did you navigate that? And let's start with Ron.
Hey, yeah, it's a good question and good to open up with this one, right? This is probably one of the biggest issues. I don't care if you're new new to the outdoors or experienced. I think this is a real issue for Black folks in America, right? So the answer is yes, 100%. I mean, I think fear is healthy though, right? I think sometimes you have to sort of listen to the signs, right? Pay attention to what's going on in your surroundings, right? So there's a couple of things. If things look sketchy or the vibe is off, we just keep it moving. I think that's one of the great things about camping in the outdoors, right? Is you kind of have this freedom, this space, right? Once you get out there, I think you have to kind of get over your initial fear, just taking that first step. But once you take that first step and you start moving around a little bit, you realize that, like, I don't have to stay in this spot. I don't have to be stuck in this uncomfortable situation. I can just keep it moving. I haven't had any situations where I've had any like serious confrontations with folks, but I also think that we're not looking for trouble and looking for a confrontation either. And we definitely had some situations where some people who were not like-minded, not friendly, not supportive of us have pulled up or camped right next to us. And that's a situation again where you go, you know what, you can either have a confrontation or you can keep it moving. And for the most part, we just keep it moving. I never really had a real serious problem, but that fear is real. I think sometimes we have to remind ourselves not to let fear lead us, right? You want to be mindful of, be respectful of it, but not let it lead us. And then the other issue there is I've got young kids. I've got an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old and a wife. And I noticed that fear, it changes depending on who you have with you, right? If you're moving solo, if you're moving with the fellas or the boys, if you've got your girl with you, if you got your sons or your daughters with you, that all plays an impact, plays a part in it also, right? And so sometimes you got to figure out how to kind of manage that fear and sort of plan around that fear, right? You don't know what you're going to run into, who you're going to run into. And so for my family, when we go out together, we're real big on communication, and that's from the top to the bottom. So my 6-year-old, I was like, hey, how you feeling? What do you want to do today? How far do you want to go today? You tired? You feeling good? Are you feeling this spot? Is this feeling comfortable for you? And if my kids aren't feeling it, we just move on. And so I'm not saying it to say that you don't address specific situations where you have fear or you come across something sketchy. I'm saying our mindset in general is that we're very, very present and we're checking on each other and just saying, hey, does this feel good to you? Or is this a good situation for you? And if it's not, we give ourselves the freedom to just say, nah, we're going to keep it moving or move on or do something else. Whether it's in the outdoors or going back into town to get ice cream or whatever. And I think that's something people need to give themselves is the permission to say it's okay. If you're feeling fearful or you're just not feeling the vibe, it's okay to punt. I don't think you need to sort of force yourself to overcome something just because you're trying to chase, some idea what you think moving in the outdoors is or what camping is,
Yeah, Ron, thank you. I agree with all of that. I think, as Ken said in the chat, our situational awareness as Black people, it has to be on 100. We always have to go into situations and read situations because you just never know. From my personal experience, I can say that oftentimes when Nakota and I are in rural areas, there's an uneasiness, specifically when we see signs of hate, like Confederate flags, things like that. That is, to me, whenever I see it, that symbol, to me, it says that there are people in the area that don't like me. And something that helps me is just to understand that there are people that don't like me in the city, and I'm no more safe in rural areas. So I just kind of use that as like Ron was saying, as a position of power, that I own where I stand. I stand in my truth, and I just have to proceed as though I have just as much right as the next person to be in that space. So Teresa and Dakota, feel free to jump in.
Um, I will say alcohol in large groups. In addition to, unfortunately, there are not a lot of people who look like us that are outdoors. So one of the biggest changes I made with camping is, like, I started off going to Stone Mountain. If you're from Georgia, you know Stone Mountain, you know Stone Mountain's history. The last time I went to Stone Mountain, my son was probably 8 months old. It was in July, so he was 7, 8 months old. It was around 4th of July. I shouldn't have been camping that hot anyway, but it's very crowded, Confederate flags, and there was a lot of drinking. You saw Budweiser cans all over the place. And so my ex-husband and I actually left that campsite. So one of the things I would say is, if it doesn't feel right, just like Ron said, get up and leave, bail. I know I camp now by myself or with other women or with my son. I know I can't fight most men. I'm not going to try. And I know if I do have to use my protection, it's probably not even going to be on me. So I just rather go with my instinct, go with that feeling that I have. And if it doesn't feel right, just leave from the beginning. But one thing I'll say, if you're camping with people that are drinking quite a bit, especially people you don't know, just be careful. Alcohol is one of the things that I don't really like. I drink alcohol, but when I'm around other people who I know are just throwing back Budweisers, I would rather not be in that space.
Yeah. For me, the question is, do we have any fear or anxiety? I think it's just a matter of where you are. I think a lot of times when we first get out and we go camping, we just assume that all of the races are right where we're going to be camping at, and they're going to be having a Klan rally, and we're going to be the focal of attention. But once you get out there, you recognize that it's really not that way. I know one of our first times camping, we went to Cloudland, Georgia, and we get there, and the place is pretty much packed. But once we got out and started talking with people, we recognized almost everybody was coming from Atlanta. It seemed like the whole forest or the whole campsite was full of people from Atlanta, and all of them were pretty cool. At least the ones that we talked to. We didn't run into any negative people or people that meant us harm. But we have gone to places that are certainly areas where you don't feel welcome. And I think in those areas, we're certainly a lot more cautious. We're a lot more thoughtful about who sees us and where. And, we move accordingly. In addition, as far as like protection, for those kind of areas, I think it gives you maybe a sense of security. But honestly, I think the true nature of people who are out camping is that they want to be alone, and most often they leave you alone. So, you might talk to your neighbor, but seldom do we have any interaction. So from there, the more I've camped, the less anxious I've been, even in some of those more unfriendly feeling areas. But yes, leave.
Let me add this too real quick too, because you said something about being anxious and people not really wanting to be, messed with. They're kind of looking for solitude and privacy. There's a healthy dose of fear and anxiety, but also curiosity. And I'm looking at the comments and talking about the looks they get. I've found that even some of the people who look on the outside like the most hostile, or the people maybe I need to avoid, to Dakota's point, we're in the same space they're in. So already there's something in common there. I mean, I'm in the middle of nowhere and I run into you out here of all people. We probably have something in common, right? And I think some of this is us getting over our fear and sort of just being comfortable in our own skin and saying, we're here. We literally are out here. And if they're curious about you, they're just curious about you. And then you have the power to decide how much you want to share with them, or if you don't want to share with them, and keep it moving. So that's kind of how I flip the fear sometimes, is to say, hey, I'm here. You see me, what I'm saying? It is what it is.
I'm gonna jump back in, and I agree with you 100%. Ryan, there have been so many times we've gone out and I have judged a book by its cover. I've looked at it and was like, oh yeah, that's a redneck if there ever was one. And then end up in the most friendly conversation that I never thought would have ever happened. And in some instances made friends. And, you know, I think through those interactions, what I've learned is I'm not going to let who I think you are cause me to not enjoy the space that I'm in. I'll interact with you. And if I note that you are not engaging, I'm going to just go ahead and leave you alone. And as long as I don't interpret you as a threat, I'm good in that space, you know. But if it comes down to it, I'll offer you a beer, try to get to know you. And if that, you know, leads to something good, great. And if it doesn't, then I'm gonna just keep it moving.
Yeah,
But I don't think it's happened that often. I can't recall a time where I went out and absolutely felt like this was a hostile situation, other than when we went to out by Boise, Idaho. We had one interaction. We didn't even give it a chance. It didn't look like a racist area. It looked like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre area, and that was. I ain't care who was coming out that house. I'm not camping here tonight.
yeah.
Teresa, you were about to add something. I want you to say what you had on your mind. But as the next question, because a couple of you have mentioned protection in your discussion. Teresa, if you could say
Sure.
what you do for protection as like a follow-up to whatever you have to say, and then we'll go. Yeah.
Okay. I was just going to say that I haven't had any encounters that I was truly concerned about. One time it was a homeless guy that was just kind of getting close to my stuff. But it was the day I was leaving. I packed up and left. So 99.9% of the time, I've always felt safe. In regards to protection, I do carry a gun with me. It's typically on me or close to me at all times. It's a little bit tricky whenever you have a kid with you, or if I am drinking, I don't have it on me. With my son, I typically have it on me in some form or fashion, but no one would know that it's on me. And when there are other kids around, I lock it up in my truck, which isn't helpful if I need to use it right away, but it's better than nothing. I guess my biggest protection is just staying aware and making sure that I'm in a safe place, or I'm being smart about things. But if I have been indulging in some alcoholic beverages, I try not to have my weapon. I typically have a pocket knife close to me at all times. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I'm more afraid of animals than I am of people. Most of the time I go out places, I don't typically camp with a whole lot of people. I've only come close to pulling my weapon once, and that was on Dakota by accident. And that was because he was playing and sounded like a big animal, and I didn't know what it was, and I went to go get it, but his wife stopped me. But other than that, I typically don't have it's nearby, but I don't necessarily, it's close to me, but I've never really felt like I needed to use it. And I'm always careful, because especially if I have my son with me, if I'm by myself, I have it on me all the time. But with my son nearby, I have it close to me, but I want to make sure that he doesn't get to it. Although if you do have kids, you need to teach gun safety to them as well, in my opinion. But I guess my best defense is just to play offense and be aware of my surroundings. And if it doesn't seem safe, don't put myself in a position where I have to pull a weapon.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. There are times, and I don't even know how I judge when I carry my weapon and how I don't. Sometimes I'll have my gun with me, and if I have it with me, it stays on me at all times. Unfortunately, I don't have the concerns that Teresa has about having young children. But if I carry it, it's on me 100% of the time. There are times that I relinquish the responsibility of security. It's like, Nakota, you're in charge of security. Teresa, you're in charge of security. But I also carry a weapon with the understanding that I'm probably not going to shoot anyone, just because I don't know if mentally I can handle the trauma of shooting anyone else. I don't know. I always say, when I'm in the position, then we'll find out. But the goal is never to shoot anyone, never to draw my weapon. What I would say, because there were questions about the repercussions of carrying weapons, be trained, know the laws of the state that you're in. And if you're going to cross borders, if you really get into overlanding, do not carry weapons internationally. You will be probably arrested. And even certain size pocket knives, when you travel internationally, they won't allow but a certain size pocket knife. So in this country, I think it's more of an issue because everyone has guns. But that's one of the reasons that Nakota and I were really excited about doing some international travel and camping and overlanding outside of the country, so we can kind of relax and not feel the need that we have to protect ourselves all the time because everybody else doesn't have a gun. And here in the States, personally, when camping, I feel a little at ease because as a camper, I always assume that every other person outdoors has a gun, and they're probably assuming that, we have one too. So, yeah. Anyone else, Ron or Nakota, want to touch on personal safety, weapons, whatnot?
I say carry some mace. If you really just want to put an end to most of the drama, bear spray will pretty much take care of it. More often than not, the only thing that you're really going to come across is an animal, and that's really the real on it. So carrying a gun for any other reason, maybe largely ego, and you just really need to ask yourself what it is that you're using it for. As far as firearm safety, if you've taken it, then the most probable person that's going to get shot is someone that you know and love. So you need to think about that when you're taking it out there. Is it worth me accidentally shooting someone out of fear because I thought they were an animal or something? Aside from that, you're probably not going to be in a position to harm a bear if that's what your mission is. And if you watch enough videos on how that whole thing plays out, and just hearing about the speed of a bear, you might get 2 shots off from a bear that's about 50 yards away closing on you. So unless you have a caliber weapon, it's not going to happen. So, but bear spray, 17, 20 yards, you're going to shut it down. So if you were talking about using that same bear spray on another person, if you got into some type of confrontation, you're pretty much going to shut it down. So I'm more of a person who is, I'd rather disarm you than to kill you, take your life. But that's getting into details, and I'm not trying to judge anybody else out there that's carrying a firearm. But I'm just saying, know what you're carrying it for, understand what you're carrying it for. And if you do have children around, go ahead and start training them on it as soon as they can talk.
Yeah. Cool. So we put up another question about if anyone had ever experienced any racial tension, and some of us have kind of touched on it a little bit. I haven't heard anything specific where you actually felt threatened. Has anyone had an experience where they truly felt threatened by another person? And if you have, can you share how you handled it?
Well, I was in Joyce Kimber National Forest back in 2008. That was actually my first camping trip ever. And we were down in Ravine camping above a road. And we heard cars coming the opposite way, and their lights was flashed into the ravine. and guys were paralleling down on ropes towards our campsite. And the only way we got away is that my Suburban was backed up into the campsite. We took off and went into Lake Junaluska and tracked down a park ranger, and we told him what happened. And I told him if we were asleep, we would probably ended up in body bags. And he said, you probably would have, because they don't take too kind to Black people being in that area. So that was why I started carrying a gun. And I hadn't camped until Overland East in Crawfordville because of that reason. And I do carry, and I know what, I don't want to ever take someone's life as well, but that shook me up because we had young boys, and thank God we didn't take our boys on that trip, because we wouldn't have been able to escape from that situation. So that's when I started actually carrying guns and training with guns, because we wouldn't have had a prayer if our kids were there. So that was really, really disturbing. But I do question, do we need to carry a gun when we go overlanding? When I rode my motorcycle from Atlanta to the Grand Canyon, my brother and I, we also encountered a few roughnecks at a KOA site, but we just packed our bikes and left and went to the next KOA site. So we have run into some situations where it was kind of pretty hairy. And I was happy that I did have a weapon. Not that I would have used it, but if I had to, I would have. So I do have, some reservations about taking a gun, but then as Richard Pryor said, better to have it than not to need it than to need it not to have it. That's not my point.
Dale, I'm glad you mentioned the KOA specifically too there, because for folks who may not know what a KOA is, it's Campgrounds of America, if I'm correct, if I'm saying it correctly. The KOAs are, private campgrounds. They're like a chain across the country. You may see the signage on the interstate as you travel across the country, but there's a whole culture around KOAs. People build their lives in their vacation times, just family memories around KOAs. And to Dale's point, not every KOA is the same. And so I think when we were talking earlier about fear and sort of being aware of your surroundings, that's a real thing where even if you pull into a KOA, which may have a 4-star review on Google, when you pull up and you see certain things going on, whether it's people drinking, like Teresa was saying, or people getting rowdy, Confederate flags, that's what I'm talking about when I said we give ourselves permission to punt and say, no, we're good. We're going to keep it moving. And we'll push on another half hour or whatever that is and try to find another spot. Now, obviously, if you're hiking, that may be more difficult. But that's one of the advantages of vehicle-based travel and overlanding is that if you come across something sketchy, you can just leave, and we're talking about weapons and carrying, firearms for safety or whatever for safety. I think the main thing there is that Dale and his team made the choice to move on, and I'm doubling down on that because I think everyone, whatever your fantasy is about adventuring and getting outside, that's great. But I think you also need to give yourself permission to listen, hear the signs and punt. It's okay to just move on. I don't think you have to go looking to sort of, stand your ground and be the toughest guy in the forest that day. You know what I'm saying? If you do come across somebody.
I think it's extremely important, like Ron said, that we trust our instincts, not just as Black women. Not just as Black people, but also as women. I've camped once by myself. Teresa and I, we camped together as single females, and I heard a couple more people in the chat say that they're concerned about camping as females. But it's really important that the instincts, that what you feel in your heart and in your head is very real. And if ever you feel like extremely uneasy and on edge, trust your gut, because it's better to leave a situation than to have to experience potentially whatever the situation that your gut was telling you to get out of. So thank you, Ron, for bringing up that point. That was a really good point. And since we're talking about KOAs, let's talk about other resources that we use to plan our trips. So let's see, Teresa, if you want to start with that one. What resources do you use to plan your trips? And are there any things that you try to avoid or look for and be on the alert for to say this isn't a place I want to camp?
I started off camping at state parks or Stone Mountains, if you're from Georgia, but places like that. I kind of evolved and found out walk-in sites typically are more, they're further apart from each other, and those type of campers are a different type of campers. Those are the campers who are out, love the outdoors, love to camp. So I've started going to walk-in sites, especially now with COVID, because it's so hard to last minute plan for a state park site. I also do hip camps. Sonia would tell you I'm one of those that if I see a campsite or see somewhere I want to go, I'll Google it. I will look at aerial views. I will try to see how far away they are from other people. And then I also read a lot of reviews. So as a single Black female, I don't like being around a lot of people. I don't trust people, but I also don't want to be out in the sticks where I can't get to someone if I need to. So it's a happy medium. So hip camps have been my go-to, walk-in sites have been my go-to, or campsites that I've been to before, or if I can see on the pictures how far they are from away from the other people. I have stopped going and setting up at night if I'm by myself or I've never been there before and don't know the setup or layout. I like to see the area, see what I'm getting into. I have gone places and set up 9 o'clock at night, which is fine if I know the place, but I guess I have the forethought to make sure it's a safe environment before I go there. And just like Ron said, I have always told myself I will leave, and I will leave all my stuff, get in my car, and go away if I need to. So I'm just very careful about places I choose in the beginning. I have not done what Sonia, Dakota, and Ron have done, where they have just gone out not knowing where they're going to sleep that night. I've always had a plan, knowing where I'm going to be, sometimes months in advance. So I haven't gotten to the point where I feel comfortable going out and just camping somewhere I've never camped before and just driving and just stopping somewhere. So I do have a disadvantage to speak on that.
Yeah, and I'll jump in. I just saw Renee Johnson. She left a comment in there that talked about saying that, she has some general concerns about getting out there and camping alone. And I left in the comments, hey, give hemp camp a try. I can't say enough about the additional layer of security that comes just from being on private property and not sharing that space with anyone else other than, depending on how big the property is and how many campsites they might have. But you have it's a different dynamic altogether. I'm sure you've used, well, I don't know if any of you have used Airbnb or Vrbo type properties. Well, this is the same kind of concept, but people are leasing out or renting out their land for a night or two, or however long, whatever duration it is. And they normally are fairly accessible, but you can also take a look at what other people have felt about that property. So you can have a pretty good assessment of it, even going into it. We did have one bad hip camp experience. I can't even say it was bad, but it certainly played to our fears. We were in a area that was known to be racist in Alabama, and we were on a hip camp, but it was a beautiful piece of property. And although it was marked to not have people come there, or private property, don't enter if you see the sign up, people still trespassed and came. And, we were worried with the last group that came through because they didn't say anything. And we're all looking at them, and, we got the firearms and on lock, and we're looking like, all right, is this one of those Wild Wild West things or whatever? But they looked for a second. I guess they assessed it, was like, okay, there are people here on private property. We're on private property, and they left. But aside from, that one particular instance, and we talked to the owner of the property, and she was very apologetic and, wanted to know if we wanted to involve the police. Of course not. That could go sideways in so many different directions. But we were also knew that the police couldn't really even get to where we were because you literally had to off-road to get to where we were. So, but I would encourage anyone who is new to camping, that's looking to see what that life is like. If you don't want to try state park, which is probably, I think, the most secure, because you have a ranger that normally stays on site. They also have camp hosts and hostesses that are fairly accessible. And most of the people that are there know that, in a sense, you're on state property, and a ranger will come see you and arrest you and take you away to jail. So nobody's really trying to act flaky on there. So they're, if you're feeling a little wheezy about getting out camping for your first time, state park or hip camp would be my recommendation.
Speaking about state parks and the ranger, my first couple of times camping by myself at a state park, I actually sought out the ranger in the beginning and told him I was by myself. And he made extra runs around my campsite, or he would yell out, "You okay out there?" And I would yell back to him. So the rangers can be your friend if you're a little bit nervous about that. And with hip camps, the hosts, all of my hosts have been great, to the point where one lady set up her garage in case it rained or stormed, because she didn't want me and my son and I out in the rain by ourselves. So the hosts are really nice with hip camps. And if you look at the reviews, you can tell what kind of place that they are. But I had another guy, I was in Pickens, South Carolina. He drove down every night before it got dark, made sure we were okay. And there were coyotes in the middle of the night, and he sent me a message, let me know what they were. He saw I was by myself. So I think if you communicate, if you have a little bit of anxiety or fear, to the host or to the rangers or to the hip camp host, they'll kind of look out for you to give you a little bit extra security as well.
Yeah, I'll add this too. I think I agree 100%. Hip camp and state parks are a great place to start, particularly with the ranger Shoutout. I'm always blown away how many people don't check in with the ranger, or don't take the time to go into the visitor center and talk to the ranger. I think they usually have the best maps. They know what's going on. They know what was going on yesterday. So I make it a point, if we're going somewhere and we come across a ranger station or a visitor station, we'll poke our heads in and just say, "Hey, what's going on? Like, what are the conditions like? What are y'all seeing?" I love getting intel and kind of figuring out what the locals are hearing. And you usually get a good story too. They're usually curious about what you're doing, where you're going. I think some of the best camps we found, the Grand Canyon, that was all from the ranger. The ranger saw where we came from, saw how we came in, kind of checked this out, looked this over, and said, "You guys are good. Here's my radio channel. Go here." And it was one of the most amazing campsites we ever come across. And I think that's us, one, being open to communicating, but two, asking the question and checking in with the rangers. So definitely talk to the rangers if you come across them. They'll usually look out for you. We actually play 90% of the time dispersed camp, a remote camp. That's basically just going up to the forest and camping, whether it's national forest or BLM land. We're going out west a lot too. We're camping a lot in Oregon, Colorado, and places like that. So we're usually way out where there's no cell service or communication, which is another reason why we check in with the ranger a lot of times, let people know where we're going. Ironically enough, I actually feel safer in those spaces because it's just us. And we have a lot more control over the space, right? If somebody's coming, we see them from a long way away usually, you know what I mean? Or we hear them coming from a long way away, which to me makes me feel safer. So there's something to be said for going to the state park, but there's also to be said for, to Teresa's point, whether you're walking into a dispersed campsite or driving hundreds of miles to a dispersed campsite, you can sort of pick and choose how you want to move. But it's, ironically enough, I actually feel safer being as remote as possible. You're just dealing with less, there's less chances something's going to go left, right? You're going to run into somebody who's got bad intentions. That's sort of our experience. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I tend to feel safer the more remote the area is, specifically when Dakota and I are together. I'm a bit of a chicken. So when the time that I camped, it was just me, I was very specific. I wanted to camp at a hip camp because I wanted to be on private property. I didn't want to have to deal with any other campers. And I wanted to have space and privacy that I wouldn't get from a state park. So if you find a good hip camp, it can be like the perfect balance between dispersed camping and a state park. But the question was about resources that we use when planning. And we talked a lot about hip camp. Um, but Ron, take that question over because you're a planner. Like that is your forte.
So for most of our Camp Yoshi adventures, I'm the main sort of logistics planning guy. And Teresa and I have that in common where I'm like her, I'm taking notes constantly. I'm writing down tips. I'm collecting information. If you say it's a dope spot, I'm trying to figure out where it is. I'm the guy who's on the road looking at that ridge and seeing tracks and going, how'd they get up there? Somebody got up there. There's a way to get up there. My number one tool is a site called roadtrippers.com. I love that website. That's for highway and sort of interstate travel. But what's dope about it is it's really simple. It does more than just sort of Google Maps. It also sort of lets you put in parameters for interstate usage, back road usage. You can put in parameters for hotels, budgets for hotels, KOA campgrounds, which Dale mentioned earlier, dispersed camping. You can put in a lot of sort of filters to help you plan how to get from point A to point B, however you want to move. There's even one now, I think, for the RV folks. There's another one, I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's for RV specifically, and it takes into account the height of bridges and tunnels. A lot of our folks who like to go the RV route may have challenges going through certain routes because of the height of bridges and tunnels or overhangs, and there's one for that also. So we already mentioned HipCamp. Roadtrippers.com is a really good one. Another good one is Gaia GPS. If you're into off-roading and sort of four-wheeling or off-highway use, or if you're a hunter, whatever you're into, if you're doing something that's sort of off the grid or off the main roads, Gaia GPS is a really, really, really powerful app if you can learn how to use it. There's a lot of other ones, but I feel like Gaia is the one that sort of pulls it all together and sort of, can really sort of put a lot of power in your hands if you know how to use it.
Alicia, she also put a couple more resources in the chat. Dirt, iOverlander, Free Roamer. Those are all apps. iOverlander, I think it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes it's like all that'll be in the area is Walmart parking lots. And depending on how you camp, if you stealth camp in a van or, a trailer or RV or something, that's really good. But sometimes iOverlanding can get you in trouble. But freecampsites.net, which she put up, freecampsites.net is probably my favorite website for finding dispersed campsites. Some of our favorite campgrounds out in the Moab area, which you guys know is, well, you may not know, but Moab is an area that's packed. But there's a campsite. I wish I could tell you, but it's our secret little place. Twice we've been to Moab and it's been like open. So maybe one day I'll tell you. But freecampsites.net is a really good app. And since you mentioned Gaia, I think that's a really good segue into the next question about devices that we use to make sure that we don't get lost, to make sure that we just don't end up like those people that get lost and never found again. So Gaia is one of them. If you're not familiar, it's an offline navigation system. So even if you don't have internet service, you can use Gaia. You can turn it on where it traces your steps. So if you're really lost, all you have to do is turn back around, but it also has integrated maps. You can see where pretty much everything is. You can even see where forest fires are. But specifically with resources to use to make sure we stay safe. There was a question about personal locator beacons or satellite devices. What do you guys think about those, and any insight you can give? Always carry some type of device where you can be found. That's my advice. But somebody else go ahead. Nicole or Ron.
I can chime in real quick here. We carry Garmin and Reaches. I carry one. Rashad carries one. We make it to a point where even if we have multiple vehicles, we'll have one in each vehicle because we've had people get separated. That's not what you want to do. That's not a good practice, but things do happen. There's other options now. I can't remember that. I think it's called the Velo or Velon or something like that. But there's other options now besides the Garmin that are a little bit more affordable. So do your research. But it's a really powerful tool, especially if you're off the grid. For me, it's something where I can send messages to my wife and to my pops. My pops, God bless him, you know, I'm 44 years old. My pop still gets nervous every time I go out into the woods. It's a generational thing, right? So that was one of the reasons why I got the Garmin, was just to let him know that we're good. You know, you can sort of pre-program your messages and send out a quick text over a satellite, and it's maybe $30 a month for like the power user. You can get maybe a $20 a month plan too. And then what's great about the Garmin is you can get a subscription and turn it off. So if you're out, you can turn it on for a month. And then if you're going to sit for the next, 10 months out of the year, you can turn it off and not have to pay for it month to month. It's a really nice feature of the Garmin. The interface isn't the best, but it's a really, really good tool for what it is. So.
Yeah. Dakota, do you have anything to add with that? I can't remember the name of the one that we have.
We use the Zolio, and to its detriment, is exactly what Ron said, is the power of the Garmin. Is the subscription is you can't turn it off, and I think it's around $30 a month, and it sucks because you want to carry it, but once you turn it on, what are you going to do, kind of thing. So that's a bit of a challenge as far as using it. I think I would yield to the good Mr. Frazier and say, if you can find your Garmin app, a Garmin device, go with that. Another thing that we are really big on carrying with us are walkie-talkies. You can also use radio, ham radios, or whatever. Well, I guess it's, in a sense, we use Biofeens, and they're really cheap. You're talking maybe $25 for one, 2 for $50, that kind of thing. You can buy 5 for $100, but just know that they're disposable and they eventually will die. Hopefully not at the most inopportune time, but they're very helpful, especially if you're riding with a group. You got like 4 cars or 4 vehicles and you're rolling through the woods. You're not going to have much range, but it gives you some range, and that little bit of range helps you a lot. There have been so many times, we've done really 2 trips together, Ron, where we were out west, and we live by our radios. And when Sonia and I went to Colombia some years ago, that was essentially the only communication between the vehicles. And I recall once when the batteries went dead, we were like in a panic situation because we knew that if we didn't have communication, that we were jeopardizing lives real time. So I'm a big fan of using some type of ham radio, no matter what it is. I would say even if you just buy one, get it and make it, I would say get something like a Biofeed. That way it can have a dual band and give you some options to be able to communicate with people on any type of channel. If worst comes situation, yeah, you can use the kids' radios too. You'd be surprised at how helpful they can be. And when you're out and you're moving, or you find yourself separated from your group for whatever reasons, I think that should cover it as far as some other part.
Let me add this real quick too. I'm looking at the comments talking about ham versus GMRS and whatnot. Ham is amazing. If you got ham, you're already ahead of the game, frankly. That said, GMRS, I think the rule of thumb is whatever your crew is using, that's what you roll with. So whether it's GMRS or CB or ham, whatever, it's more so not just what you use, it's what your team is using, right? And that's a reason Dakota mentioned having 2. I know some people roll with 4. I think for Yoshi, we roll with like 8. We keep extra radios in the rigs or with us so that you meet someone along the way, you can hand them a radio that works with your radio. That's a good rule of thumb. Like even with us driving with kids, we'll have extra radios for the kids just to play around with a little bit too, right? So something to keep in mind is the radio's no good if you only have one. You want to be thinking about 2, 3, 4, and that way if you come across a situation, you can actually hand them out and have people communicate back with you no matter what they're running, right? So just something to keep in mind. So
agreed.
Yeah. All great points. So I think just to wrap that up, make sure you have some type of navigation resource when you're offline. Go ahead, Dakota.
One other thing, as far as navigation resource, Sonia, get you a atlas. You know, the maps that you can buy at the ranger stations are incredibly powerful tools that really put the technology to rest as far as not having to worry about your battery going dead or whether or not you have signal. I don't think we've been anywhere where we didn't have either the maps downloaded on a separate device, sort of like an old iPad, or on a phone, and made sure that we uploaded some stuff. But at the end of it, we also have and carry regular old school maps, and those things will save you when you have no idea of where you are. And in emergency situations, a compass, I would say, it's another one of those things. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. We haven't been in a situation where we've had to break out a compass, but just trying to become a better traveler. I am now, like, I keep my compass on my cell phone, and I try to make sure I check my coordinates and, hey, do I really know which way east is? Do I really know which way west is? And what does it look like when I look up in the sky? Did that make sense with what I thought was on my phone, or what I thought my compass was going to tell me? Just becoming a little bit more acquainted with natural navigation can really help you reduce the level of anxiety that you might be subjected to when you're not very comfortable with where you are. Hey, my mom is on.
Hey, I've been on for a minute. I was just wanting to ask a question.
What's your question, Ms. Linda? We're gonna let you ask your question verbally since you Dakota's mama.
Okay, I love you. I just want to know how you get over fear of camping.
That's a great question.
Gotta do it.
And I would say the first thing is to find people that you feel comfortable with and go. I was fortunate that Teresa, she wanted to go camping, and I just kind of tagged along with her. So I didn't really have to get over the fear thing. But that would be my advice. Seek out some resources, go to group events. We just had the gathering. We had over 100 people, 100 people camping that looked like you, where we created an atmosphere where you could feel safe and be comfortable. There are Camp Yoshi events if you want to try something more elaborate and do something that's a little more intense. But plug yourself into groups like Black Girls Camp, Black People Camp 2, groups like that. If you're averse to going camping by yourself, watch as many videos. Dakota and I, we make videos about everything, from scorpions in the tent to how to set up a tent, whatever. But immersing yourself into the culture and learning from other people is the biggest thing. And then just taking the time to educate yourself. I would say that's the easiest way to get over the fear of camping. Any other inputs?
I would say go to a state park that's within 15, 20 minutes of your house, and just know mistakes are going to be made, as Dakota says, and know you're going to visit a Walmart a couple of times that camping trip. But go close by the house. If it doesn't feel right, if you don't like it, you can drive home, come get your stuff the next day. But I think you just have to do it. All the planning in the world, you're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to have to get stuff. You're still going to forget this, and it'll evolve to where you're an expert camper. And even still, I may have to go to Walmart for something. So I say go close to home, do a state park, and just know that you're not going to get it right the first time.
Yeah, I think choosing a location where you feel safe is key. Teresa said it. Dakota and I, we did the same thing. And I think Ron had a really similar experience. Camping at campgrounds, places where you can talk to people. There's an expert, there's a ranger. And once we got comfortable in those settings, we ventured out into remote areas and national forests, things like that. But the biggest thing, like Teresa said, is choosing somewhere that you feel safe and kind of minimizing as much of the anxiety as you can from outside things. Speaking of fear in camping, we talked a lot about camping in groups and getting to know people, but there was a question about, do you encourage solo camping?
Yes. I would tell anybody, go alone. You learn so much about yourself. I can't say enough about it. Every time I go camping alone, I'm a better person when I come back. It's not to say that, when Sonia and I go camping that I don't take something, I take something back every time I go camping, regardless whether I'm with her or not. But I learn so much more about myself, my tendencies, things that I like, things that I don't like, things that I need, things that I want, are completely different than the kind of stuff that I would take with me or desire when I'm with Sonia. And there's also a lot more internal focus when you're alone, because you essentially have to entertain yourself or occupy your time, and that looks very differently than when I'm with Sonia or when I'm with a group. I meditate, I take longer walks, I cook differently, I spend more time in a hammock, I read a lot more, I journal a lot more. And these things cause me to be a lot more introspective while I'm alone. So I'm a huge fan of solo camping. And I dare say that I also confront my fears of being alone. I also confront my fear of darkness that started when I was a kid. Fear of spiders, which, is I've gotten so much better over the years. That's it. I think those are my biggest things that I walk away with when I go solo camp. Yeah, I'm scared of spiders. I'm not as scared as I used to be, though.
Do Ron and Teresa have anything to add?
I would say at one point, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was going solo camping every other weekend for a good little bit of time. And I don't know, like I said, I was grounded. Like, I don't know, for my ladies, especially if you have kids or a family, I know when I'm at home, and even if I have a house to myself, I feel like I need to still do chores or still need to do this or do that. And so it was a cheap way for me to get away from everything. Yes, the laundry was still on the couch. Yes, I still needed to do this or that. But when I went outside, I could just let go. And I actually prefer places where I don't have internet or Wi-Fi, because I don't have to answer calls. I don't have to, I can get away from social media. But like Nakota said, I can do whatever I want to. I've had camping trips where I've crocheted, I've sat in a hammock, I've read books. And I had one camping trip where I just sat and watched Netflix movies straight. And I was okay with that. I eat what I want to. I will go out to eat and go to a steakhouse if I want to by myself, or I will cook food by myself. I had one trip where I ate lettuce, meat, cheese, and mustard because I forgot bread, and I was okay with that. So you can make it what you want to, but when you do it by yourself, you're doing exactly what you want to do at that time. And I think it's just a great way to explore nature, regroup, ground yourself. I don't know. I highly recommend it for everyone.
I'll add this too. I think everything everyone else said, but also be mindful of risk, right? Sort of be smart, have a plan, let people know. And it obviously depends on what you're doing, right? If you're just going down the street, that's one thing. But if you're if you're going on a kayaking trip and there's rapids, or you're going on a climbing trip, there's a chance of serious injury. You just want to make sure you communicate, let people know where you're going to be. So I'm always real big on like, hey, take precautions, be prepared, let people know what your plan in and what your plan out is, right? So that's
check in.
Yeah.
That's a really great point. When I'm by myself, I say that like I've been camping a lot, but even when Teresa and I go camping together as two single females, we camp differently than when Dakota and I camp together. We take completely different risks. But in terms of camping solo, it's a completely different experience when you camp solo. You don't have to be considerate of anyone else in that moment. And there's a lot to be said in that. And a lot of times when you think about camping or overlanding or off-roading, you think about adventure. But being in nature, camping is a very healing, restorative place. So I think it's really important. Even when Dakota and we're together, we try to get that time apart. I try to encourage Dakota to go do some yoga or go and meditate or read his book. And so I can sit in the hammock and chill and relax, just so we have that time and that space to do what we need to restore ourselves, and when you do anything by yourself, when you go out to eat by yourself, when you go camping by yourself, when you watch a movie by yourself, it really is a different type of experience than when you share it with someone else. But with that, make good decisions. Don't go in the middle of nowhere without letting anyone know where you are, with no cell phone service. Just be smart about the things that you do. And that's just, in general, a good way to be. And I think that's a good segue to the next question. Do you guys feel like outdoor adventure, camping, however you want to call it, is different to experience as a Black person versus someone else?
I can't speak for, any other ethnicities. I'm a Black person. So I think it's a loaded question. I think
So what do you think makes your experience unique? Maybe that's a better question.
I don't know. Maybe I'm going to just be quiet on this one.
I work with quite a few, actually most of my department, they're outdoorsy, and all of them are white. I was the only Black therapist in my department at one of the hospitals that I just left. But either way, I think my experience is different because of the comfort level. Like when they say you have a toilet, and I have a toilet. And I'm just one of the girls, she did the whole Appalachian Trail by herself with, I think her pack got down to like 12 pounds. She had a pocket knife at the bottom, and I'm looking at her like, you have got to be crazy. So I think when they look at me, sometimes I kind of am that true glamper that has excessive stuff. But I will say that we feed off of each other, because a lot of them have started buying some of the things that I have to make their camping experiences more comfortable. And then in my case, I've let go of some of those things, like, oh, it is okay to try to do this or do this trail by myself. So I think we feed off of each other. I will say, even though I've been doing this for 10 years, I am not as adventurous as I would say some of my coworkers are. Like, I'm not going to do the AT by myself, as a female, especially. But I'll say, I don't know. I think when they see how I camp, because I've had a few come out to my campsite, I don't know what they do, but they see how I have more of a relaxed type of camping style. Like, I will go kayak, I will go on a hike, but 80% of my time is sitting around the campfire, having, the community experience with my friends, or being by myself, versus they do more backpacking, hiking, rock climbing, or they may kayak rapids or rivers, and I'm more of a flat river. So I think it's still a disconnect between the adventure level, at least for me.
Yeah. Ron, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, that was a deep one, man. That wouldn't have my head spinning for a second there. I think it's tough. I don't know if we experience it different, right? The oohs and the ahs and the wow and the wonder. I think that's the same for us, right? And I'm real big on like owning your power, owning your space. And I don't like this idea, these narratives that Black people don't do certain things, that we don't camp. I'm like, we've been hunting and fishing and living off the land forever. You know what I'm saying? Like this narrative that it went away is just not true. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really, that said, what is unique to us is our experience, our trauma with the woods and the outdoors, right? And I think about this a lot for Camp Yoshi. We got a comment super early on, and someone was like, "Yo, like, yep, the woods look different than y'all's photos." And we were just like, "What do you mean by that?" It said the woods look different. When I see the woods, usually I'm from the South. I'm from the South. And they were like, "I'm from the South. When I see the woods, it's usually trauma. You know, it's lynches and hangings." And I don't want to bring the mood down, but that comment always sort of stuck with me, you know, as we've gotten deeper, done more at Camp Yoshi. And that's part of what we're trying to do, right? To show like, hey, you don't have to look at the outdoors and see forests and trees and think of certain images. You know what I'm saying? You can let that go. You know, you can go into whatever spaces you want to go into and experience them for yourself. You know, and share your stories, you know, create your own stories. And that's that. You don't have to qualify it or you know, over explain yourself, or you don't have to be a unicorn or some sort of super, you know, person to be out here. You know what I'm saying? Like, just go do it because you want to do it, be you, and be comfortable in your skin and in your space. And I think that's how you really take back space, right? So to answer your question, I didn't really think about so much, do we experience or feel it different? I thought more so about what we bring with us to these spaces, right? We have a different lens. The stories are different, right? And I mentioned my pops earlier, you know, and I talked about pops with my camping adventures. He's so proud and so blown away, but those images hit different for him, right? He's just like, whoa, you know, like those images look different when he's looking at them, and I can understand that. So, and that's something that I think the wider culture and white folks or whoever don't quite get. I think when we talk with partners sometimes in the wider outdoor community, I'm blown away how many of them really don't get the trauma, you know, and not just historic. I mean, like recent. I'm like, this is within people's lifetimes. This is dinner table conversation for some of our folks. You know what I'm saying? This isn't like something that happened in a book, you know, or in a movie. This is, you know, this is mom and pop talking. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's my. I think that's something that is unique for us, especially here in America. And you guys said this earlier, so and you said we hear this a lot too. There's so many Black folks who have the means and the will and have traveled around the world, but never felt safe enough to travel in their own country, right? You know, we're talking about firearms earlier too, right? So that's just something that's sort of unique for the, you know, the American experience, right? So
Yeah. And I think you guys touched on some of the things. This wasn't a question that was submitted. It was one that I put out there just as I thought about things that I thought made my experience unique. One, healing from that trauma, to not see the outdoors as a place of pain, you know, from historically. But I think also from a cultural perspective, Black people are deeply rooted in the outdoors historically. These are spaces that we thrived in and spaces that we dwelled in. So for us, I see it as a bit of a rediscovery for me. It's something that along the way, being outdoors, we've lost the connection to. So for me, I was rediscovering this and getting back in touch with nature, but also in terms of how we do things I think Black people do things differently. And I don't think this is just an outdoors thing. I think a lot of times we approach things and we have to know everything in order to do it. I don't know how to camp. I don't know how to pitch a tent. I don't know how to cook outside, where a lot of it is really just putting yourself out there and saying, you know what, I know how to cook in the house, so let me get this stove and let me figure it out. And I think a lot of times within our community, we're not as willing to be as vulnerable and not knowing and just get out there and try. So I think that makes our experience a little different sometimes. So we have 10 minutes left, you guys. And to wrap it up, I just wanted everyone on the panel to go around, excuse me, and just kind of give some final remarks and just tell what their outdoor and camping goals are. Yeah. Let's start with Nakota.
I want to be, I guess a camping goal would be I want to get to the point where I'm about 10 days out, that I could stay out in the woods at a specific location and not have to move my vehicle, not have to do anything, that I'm capable of being at some spot or being remote for 10 days.
Without moving, okay. How about you, Ron?
I don't know. I'm thinking about, this is going to sound funny, but certifications. This isn't necessarily for me personally, but what I've learned is there's a lot of folks who are making a living in these spaces, and a lot of, to Sonia's point, I'm like, we focus so much on education and knowing everything before we do something, right? We want to have all the knowledge, and I'm like, there's a lot of folks who don't have the, necessarily the education or the experience that some of our folks do, but there's opportunities out there. So whether it's certifications or just sort of, getting more information, I think people can thrive in these spaces. I really do. I think we got planes, we got the internet, you can do business and make connections and build community anywhere in the world now. You can go anywhere in the world and hear the same music. Right? So that's what I've been thinking a lot about, is sort of, as you move in these spaces, how do you thrive in these spaces? And that kind of goes to what Dakota was saying also. And some of that is just getting certified, whether you're wilderness certified or you're into hunting and fishing, your license for that. I'm always surprised at how many people I meet who have, so much experience in these spaces, but they're not necessarily able to make a living in it. You know what I'm saying? Or don't know how necessarily to take advantage of it, whereas other folks have been doing it for generations. So that's something I'm thinking about a lot about. So you're on mute, Sonia. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. How about you, Teresa?
I think I want to start, and I think I have started doing things and going places that I never thought I would do. This year we started kayak camping. I want to backpack. I would love to do the Appalachian Trail, but I want to go with someone. So I want to get in backpacking mode or start backpacking. I guess I want to start going to those places that seem untouchable, and I need to get out my comfort zone and do it. I'm kind of like you, Sonia. I'm very cautious, but I want to start going further and seeing places that most people will never see in a lifetime. Long term, my goal is, my retirement plan is to get an RV, and that's how I'm going to live. An RV in somebody's driveway if I have to. But I don't want to. I hate that I bought into the American dream and bought a house and got settled, which is great for my son and for where we are now. But I can't wait till I can let all that go and be a true wanderer.
You're on mute, Sonia.
I was real into that too. I'm really surprised that Nakota didn't mention it when he talked about his goals, because this is really what we're working towards, is to become full-time overlanders, to kind of do like Teresa said, and what we previously thought of as the American dream, to have the house, well now, we live in a loft downtown Atlanta, but to just move away from a lot of the material possessions that keep us bogged down and working hard for the man. But our goal is to really walk away and to make our passion our lifestyle. So to live full time, however long that is, on the road. And I want to continue. My goal is to, do more activities like this, do more things like the gathering, to bring people together and to bring the community together, help build the community so that it's easier for us to go outside and to feel safe.
Babe, I was thinking of my own selfish personal goal for what camping looks like for me. When we first started camping, we were essentially maybe 2 or 3 days we could be out. And after that, we would have to come in. We tried to make these modifications to our trucks so that we could stay out longer. But the more modifications that we made, the more it seemed to shorten it. But yeah, I think as far as if we're looking at saying what is Staples Intense, one of the goals that we have is to increase the numbers of Black people that are going out and seeing more of the world. For me, it's not enough that each one of you that are on here is curious about going camping. I want to see the photos of you all and your journeys and hear your stories, because I know that at the root of it is healing, growth, a sense of adventure, and you're also getting to witness the beauty of our own country, and hopefully it's piquing enough curiosity for you to want to see more of the world. So, the goal is how many more of these souls can we open up to have this experience that we have been so fortunate to have over these past 4 years, and to create a community where each one of us are so familiar with the others, and we can connect with each other wherever we go, to whether we're camping, hanging out by a campfire, or going on some wild adventure together. And we got some dates. Sonia, I'm gonna let you share, but we got some big dreams of what the next Staples Intense, the gathering. We got some big dreams for this, that I'm trying not to speak to it because we got some homework that we got to do, but the next gathering is going to be so epically dope. I'm boiling to keep it under wraps. It's going to be dope though. It's going to be dope.
Nakota's funny, y'all. Nakota is so funny. We have decided that there will be a gathering 2022. It'll be October 2022. We're still working on the details, plans, but we want to make it bigger and better for anyone who was there. It was pretty big and pretty bad this year, but we want to bring more. We want to bring more. But before then, we're going to do a couple more smaller activities, and some dates will be rolling out soon. So just stay tuned to your email, because like I said, the goal is to do more. Nakota and I, we have historically been very to ourselves with camping because it was something that we really cherished as part of our relationship, because we attributed it to saving our relationship. But
now
The
that we're
gathering.
being, I said, but now that we are, the circle has opened, and
Yeah.
the friends around the campfire. I don't know how many of y'all that were able to make it to the gathering and have whatever that experience was. I can tell you it was nothing short of beauty at its finest. I felt like we were amongst a bunch of people who were healed or in the process of healing, helping each other in every way possible to have the best experience that they could. It was very beautiful. I don't think I cried probably like 3 or 4 times just from being overwhelmed by feelings of happiness and belongingness and just the coolness of the people that were there and all of the positive vibes and good energy that everyone brought. It was like you couldn't have I didn't think that much good energy could accumulate in one spot, and it did. And it was everywhere.
Yeah, I think I kind of I was just holding it all together the entire weekend, but I think it got to a point, there were maybe only 10 vehicles still left. And I like broke down crying. And a few minutes later, Dakota was like, oh, we have to do a video. I was like, look at my face. Do I look like I can do a video right now? It was just like ugly crying. But we were just really appreciative to everyone who attended. And my hope was that we would have our video tonight to kind of feature. It is being uploaded now. I just got the text message, but coming soon so everyone can hear about the gathering experience. But if you saw the last poll that was up, pretty much everyone said that this conversation made them feel more comfortable, more confident about getting outside. And that is the goal. Thank everyone who attended for sharing. The people who chimed in, Dale, thank you so much for sharing your story, because even though a lot of the feelings that we have, they're internal, they're rooted in fear and anxiety, but a lot of those things, they're based in history. We didn't make this stuff up in our head. And there are negative instances that happen across the country every single day, so they can't be ignored. But I think the real point of this conversation is to say that there are people that look like you and look like me getting out every day, and they are thriving in outdoor spaces. So take that fear, bottle it up, use it as a motivating factor to overcome that fear. Thank everyone for attending. Thank you to the panelists, Nakota, my husband and travel partner, Teresa's been my best friend since we were 9 years old. And I made the comment on Instagram today, she is my ride, but definitely not my die, because Teresa ain't dying for nobody. She's like, I'm gonna be there. And then Ron, as a Tribe Called Camp and Staples and Tents have history. He was one of the first people that we met our very first Overland East, when overlanding was just a concept in our mind. And connecting with him, it really encouraged us to take our first cross-country trip. And then even last summer, when we did our second cross-country trip, Ron was right there with us, meeting up with us. So it's really inspiring that now, we're growing Staples and Tents and Black People Off-Road, and Ron is also growing a Tribe Called Camp and really helping to build the community and help diversify the community. So
yeah. And I don't know if is Rashad on, Ron, your brother?
He was.
Okay.
He was in here earlier. I saw him. I can't see all the names now.
I'm here.
Rashad.
What up, Shad?
Hey, what up, family?
What up, fam? Yo, bro, do you want to give a quick rundown on Camp Yoshi and what people might want? What should they know about Camp Yoshi?
Camp Yoshi is outdoor adventure for Black folks. It's basically trying to demystify what it means to get outside, man. It is 4 days of adventure. You fly to a remote location, we pick you up. It is overlanding, it is camping, it is gourmet meals, it is amazing sunsets and sunrises, it's cocktails. It's It's joy, man. We do about 22 trips a year. Next year's gonna be even bigger. We're hopping around Colorado, as far as the San Juan Mountains, Moab, southeastern Oregon. Pretty much taking people of color, specifically Black folks, to places you never knew existed, or places you never knew you needed to see. And but yeah, you drop one fee. It's a one-stop shop, and you just show up. But the idea is mainly get you outside at a high level, and pretty much get you out of your comfort zone, and kind of show you spots you never knew existed. And we do all that with just all the right gear, amazing vehicles. We got a really awesome crew of camp gurus to help guide you guys along the way. Like just getting your reps in, building up that confidence, kind of letting you know, like you can kind of come out to these spaces and thrive and build community. You can eat well and just see things you didn't know existed in your own backyard.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
all
good,
of
Jim.
that. So
Yeah.
anyone that follows Nakota and I on YouTube, when you see us going out west and going to all these crazy places, or exciting places, I won't say crazy, if that's something that you want to do, but you don't necessarily have the gear, the equipment, the knowledge, the wherewithal, the sense of adventure, Camp Yoshi is a great place to try it out, experience it in a really safe environment with knowledgeable people before you get out there and start doing it on your own. But by all means, feel free to take that next step of adventure. Do a trip, even if it's not cross country, cross state lines, go somewhere and explore. Nakota, he always jokes me about being the church lady and saying goodbye 20 times. And I know I've said thank you like at least 5 times right now. So what I'm going to do is say thank you for attending one last time, and stay tuned, check your email, check Instagram, follow Staples and Tents on all social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. And you guys have a great night. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night, you guys. Love y'all. Bye.